Hi, this is Sweet June. How's everybody doing today? I'm back. I think this is a very important topic because I'm hearing a lot of stories of single mothers, little children getting killed by the hands of the single mother's boyfriends. I heard this one particular case that was very, very disturbing to me. This cute little girl. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the little girl, oh my gosh, she is so cute. She was such a beautiful little girl. I mean, she had the face of an angel. This little girl was absolutely adorable. And I'm looking at the little girl and I'm like, little 4-year-old girl, I'm like, how can anybody do anything to hurt her? I mean, she's such a beautiful little girl. But apparently her mother, she let some guy that was in prison, the guy was in prison, and was a sexual. Um, he had a sexual what they call that, assault on his record. I mean, he was on a sex offender. He was a sex offender. That's what I want to say. He was a sex offender. Okay, now everybody knows that when you are a sex offender, you get convicted of raping someone, whether it's a woman, a child, or whatever, and you get released from prison, they put you on what this registry, a nationwide registry of sex offenders. And so people can actually go in, you can go into the computer and put in your neighborhood, and you can find out the sexual offenders that live in your neighborhood. Because by law, they have to list them. So you know if they're in your area. Well, this guy was a sex offender. He was a registered sex offender. And this woman lets the guy, he's getting out of prison. She lets the guy come live. And I think he was a child molester. She lets the guy come live with her and her little girl. And then she leaves, I guess, and she lets the guy, on top of that, she leaves and she lets the guy watch the little girl. Well, I guess he ends up raping the little girl and killing the little girl. They said he hit her so hard that he um he messed up her liver or kidney or something. Oh, it was so sad. I mean, it was just so sad. I mean, I looked at that little girl. She had the most beautiful face. She was such a beautiful little girl, 4-year-old girl. He punched her in the stomach so hard it damaged her internal organs. I just can't wrap my mind around it. It's just hard for me to even imagine. And I just, I read that and it really, it's really, really, really disturbing to me. I mean, my first question that pops up into my head is, I had a lot of questions in my mind, and the first question that popped in my head was, why in the world would she let this man that got convicted of child molesting, a sex offender, he was in prison, and not all guys. Now, don't get me wrong, not all guys that have been in prison are bad. Some of them, they come out and they want to, turn their life around and turn over a new leaf. I'm not suggesting that everybody that is released from prison are bad. But this guy was a sex offender. He was a registered sex offender. And he wouldn't even, when you're a registered sex offender, you're not even supposed to be within so many feet of a child. You are not supposed to be within so many feet of a child. You're not supposed to be within so many feet of a school or a daycare. When you are a sex offender, you cannot be within so many feet of a playground, school, or daycare, anywhere where there's children. You're not supposed to be within so many feet of children when you are on the sex offender list. And this man was living with this child. She had this man, and she knew that, and she had this man living with this child, with her little girl. And what my thought is our children are our most precious asset. Your most precious asset is your child. It is your most precious asset. And now she's got to not only live with the fact that her baby is dead, Now she has to live with the fact that she left this man in her home and left him with her little girl. So she has to live with the fact that her little girl is gone. And then she has to live with the guilt for the rest of her life, knowing that she left this man with her baby. So imagine having all that on your heart for the rest of your life. And that just makes me, I said, and I'm hearing so many cases, I'm hearing so many of these cases where these women are hooking up with these guys and these men are killing the kids. And I just don't understand it. I mean, I'm a single mother myself, and um, I just couldn't imagine just like leaving some random guy with my kids. You know, um, these women don't even be knowing these men, and I know I was very careful about who I had around my kids when my kids were younger. Um, I was very careful about who I had around them. And then after a while, I just quit. I started studying, to be a witness, and I just quit dating altogether. And because I was really mindful of that, because I really, really thought about, I just didn't want to just be having random men around my sons, because it just sends bad messages and everything. And so that's what I'm saying. Um, I know being a single mother is rough. I know that it's rough, and I know that a lot of times, I know when I was a single mom and I was raising my two boys, um, I wanted to get married. I wanted to get married early on, and it would have been nice that I wanted to find somebody and, a good father figure to the children, a good husband for me. And I had that desire. But at the same time, I didn't want to, I wasn't just want to go out there and find some random guy. And I just, I know there was an incident one time where I had this guy. I'm trying to make a long story short. This was years ago, shortly after I broke up with my son's father. And I went to work down at um, an office building. I was doing some temp work. And I went to work. They assigned me to a kitchen job at this office building. And I met this guy. And um, my oldest son was just a baby. He was practically a baby at the time, um, and I met him, and I brought him home, and he was, because I felt sorry for him, and in the ironic thing was is that um, I mainly felt sorry for the guy. I felt sorry for him, and because he kept saying that he was living at the mission, and he didn't have a place to go and everything, and I wasn't going to let him live. Well, he said, "Well, I just need this place to stay for a day or whatever." So, me being stupid, being really stupid, and the thing was, I would say, young ladies, follow your instincts, because when this guy touched me, I had no desire to have sex with this guy, because when this guy touched me, he put his hand on my back, and when he put his hand on my back, it was like I felt a bad spirit. I had never. I mean, even now it's hard for me to. I mean, it really trips me out to even think about it, because he put his hand on my back, and I didn't even want him touching me. I did like this. I didn't even want him touching me. It was like he had a bad spirit. I could just feel a bad spirit, and ironically, this guy had been in prison too, and not using a course of wisdom, just being stupid. I'm gonna just be honest and keep it real. I was being stupid, and my biggest fault. I'm gonna let you know what my biggest problem is. My biggest problem is I have the tendency to feel sorry for people. The only difference between now and then is that now I have more wisdom. Back then, I was a little on the naive side because I was only in my early 20s, and that has always been my biggest downfall. I had a tendency to feel sorry for people, and because I have the tendency to feel sorry for people, there was times where I have gotten taken advantage of, And so I kind of felt sorry for the guy because he kept saying he was living at the mission and all that kind of stuff. He played on my sympathies. But that should have told me something right there. That was my instincts. When he touched me, and I didn't even want this man touching me, I just felt a bad spirit. So I let him sleep out in the living room. I had a couch that came out to a bed, and I let him sleep on there. And me and my son went in my bedroom, and I closed the door, And so he tricked me one night. He asked me to come in, He said, "Come in the living room. I need to talk to you." So I came in there, and he rolled on top of me like he was going to rape me. I was like, oh my God. And so the first thing that came to my mind was, I don't know, the first thing that came to my mind was AIDS. And I was like, well, what about AIDS? And so he got off of me. As soon as I mentioned AIDS, he got off me. And I was like, thank God, that was like the magic word. And so I said, you got to leave. And so I put him out of my house, um, and then after that, he tried to break in. He tried to break in my house after that. And my son's father, I tried to call him, and he wouldn't come over. He was like, "Well, call the police. You need to call the police," and everything. And I'm telling you, that was a nightmare. And I had to wind up calling the police because after that, he kind of stalked me. And so when the police came, I told him, I said, he won't take no for an answer. I told him to leave me alone, and he won't take no for an answer. And so finally, the cops told him he better leave and not never come back. And after that, he left me alone, thank God. But it was very scary. But when he put his hand on my back, and it's like I picked up a bad spirit with this guy, like a really bad spirit. That was my instincts. That was my instincts right there, and I should have put him out right then and there. And so that was my instincts. God gives us signs. He gives us signals, and that was my sign. And if I keep thinking back to that situation, and I think if I only had to follow my instincts, that was my instincts telling me that was something wrong. And it's like I couldn't stand this guy touching me. He touched me on my back, and I couldn't. I was like, it's like it was a bad spirit about him, and that was a sign. That was my instincts telling me that I needed to run and get this guy out of my house. But like I said, that's always been my number one problem is I had the tendency to feel sorry for people. And like I said, the difference between then and now is that now I have more wisdom and I have stronger instincts. Back then, I was young, naive, had some instincts, but you know how that goes. So that was like a learning experience for me. The lesson in that was always follow your instincts, always follow your first mind. Because that was the most scary. That guy, I almost got raped. That guy almost raped me. I mean, oh my God. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject, but I know that, so sometimes, judging from that experience, um, it is easy for sometimes for single mothers to get caught up in a situation like that, to where, and I knew that after I talked to the guy and stuff, um, I really didn't want to date him and I really didn't want to sleep with him, but it was just a situation to where I started feeling sorry for him. Go figure. So I know that some of these young ladies, they want to get married. They're single mothers, and I don't know of too many people that want to be a single mother and want to raise children by themselves. And they would like to find a nice husband and everything, but then they're not taking their time. They're not following their instincts. They're not checking these men out, and they're just hooking up with this guy. I mean, this guy was out of prison. He was a sexual. He wasn't even supposed to. He was a sex offender. He wasn't even supposed to be around her little girl. He was never even supposed to be around her, let alone be left alone with her. So I don't really know what this woman was thinking. Um, but young ladies, my message to young ladies is you got to stop letting these random men around your kids. You got to, like, this is this lady in Michigan. Um, she left her 3 kids with her boyfriend, and the apartment burned down, and 2 of the children died. You know. So I mean, I'm tired of hearing about these stories. I'm hearing all these stories about these boyfriends killing the children because these young mothers are not using a course of wisdom. They're not following their instincts. They're not checking these guys out. They're really so hard up to find a man. They're so hard up to get a man in their life that they just put everything on the side, and they disregard the safety of their children. You can't want a man so bad to the point to where you disregard the safety of your children. Because after a while, like I said, I started studying with the witnesses and everything, and I quit dating altogether. So I quit dating altogether. I said, no more. I'm not having any men, a bunch of men around my son. And so you just have to. When you're a single mother, you have to use a course of wisdom, and you got to pray about stuff, and you got to check these guys out. There's ways that you can check guys out and check them out. And then, if ask around. If you live in a smaller city, you can ask around about this guy, word of mouth, and find out what he's about, what's going on with him, and all that kind of stuff. But you got to be young single mothers. You got to be careful about the type of men that you're having around your children. And you can't let, like, if you're just meeting a guy, you can't let him watch your children. If you just met him and you barely know him, you can't let him be alone with your children. You need to make other arrangements. If you need childcare, you need to either take the children with you, or you need to make other arrangements. But you got to get to know. I think a woman, if a woman is dating, if a single mother is dating, a woman that man shouldn't even meet your kids. That man's not supposed to meet your kids for a few months. You got to be one on one with this guy, and you got to spend a number of months getting to know this guy before you even introduce him to your children, let alone being alone with them. So these women, I think it's a situation to where they're so hard up for a man, and they want that male companionship. They want that help. They want that support, and they're not taking the time to find out what these guys are all about. And I'm getting so tired of hearing all these stories. It's just so sad. And the children are the ones that have to suffer. I mean, just imagine what this poor little girl went through. I mean, that story is just so disturbing to me. I mean, it's just really disturbing to me. And so many questions was in my mind. It's like, why would she let this guy? This guy was a sex offender. Why would she let him around her children? But I know that around her little girl, and let him keep the little girl. But like I said, looking back at my situation, sometimes it is easy to get into a situation like that. But young ladies, you got to be careful. First of all, you got to get to know the guy before you even let him around your kids. You got to check him out. There's all kinds of ways that now they got. You can go to the computer, do criminal checks. Some of them, a lot of them, you got to spend a little money, but it's worth it. You could run a sexual. If it was a situation, maybe he lied about what he was in prison about. She could have did a sexual offender scan on him. She could have, because that's public information. She could have went on the computer and looked him up. His name would have popped right up. Maybe it was a situation where he didn't tell her, but she could have looked it up. There's ways that you can check these guys out. Because I met this guy online, and I checked him out. And some of these sites, like I said, they have criminal checks and stuff like that. You have to pay a little money, but it's worth it, because you can get all the information. You can find out their criminal history. All those things are public information. And so these women, I mean, young ladies, you got to be careful who you let around your kids. You can't just let random guys around your kids, and you can't just let a guy that you just met watch your children. I mean, ladies, you got to be more careful. You gotta use a course of wisdom. You can't be so hard up for a man that you don't think about the safety of your children. Okay, well, I got some more interesting video topics coming up. Stay tuned. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Like and please subscribe to my channel. This is Sweet Jean.